Indigenous knowledge and Western science are often seen as opposing knowledge systems, or part of a set of plural knowledge systems. But they speak to the same real world. So one of the areas that we looked into was critical realism for activating ESD with the inclusion of heritage and scientific knowledge in school subject teaching. And here the question was, can we bring in heritage practices and science and bring them together in an ESD process? So the first thing we found that we did that was very successful was to bring out heritage knowledge so that students were able to build a new respect for their heritage. And intergenerational knowledge on moving plants from a forest was a very good example. It was done by an Inyanga in the Eastern Cape. And what he talked about was ukutata umhlaba lonti, and described it as collecting the forest plants, wrapping the roots in humus, and then planting out with the humus. Now, this was fascinating because when we went to the scientific knowledge in the school subjects, we talked about the symbiotic relationship between the plants in the soil. And here, the scientific concept allowed us to look at how carbohydrates plants are provided by plants to the soil fungus. The soil fungus enables the soil mineral transfer, and the mycorrhizal fungus has a hormone that stimulates root growth. So what we were able to do was looking at this sort of double stimulation process of bringing together these plural knowledge and knowledge practices. And here we used the critical realist approach, where you're able to resolve complex events. So here are two modes of collecting and explaining things to redescribe for relevance. So we were able to redescribe the indigenous knowledge for relevance, and we were able to look at the indigenous knowledge in relation to the scientific concepts for relevance as a way of carbon sequestration or as a way of combating drought. And then retrodict, we were able to see back that there was a logic in the indigenous knowledge and that there was a logic in the science. We were able to eliminate ambiguity and see the knowledges speaking together to the world in useful, practical ways that we could take up in our ESD work. We were able to identify open explanations, and the open explanations allowed us to understand drought and carbon sequestration. And in the Eastern Cape, we were able to then correct our thinking so that we were able to see how important it is to be able to understand the ecological processes in the forest so that forest plants could be transplanted, or seeds and small seedlings could be transplanted in useful ways with a purpose, and that the actions could be taken up as a form of carbon sequestration in or habitat restoration, biodiversity restoration in a curriculum context of ESD. So more work needs to be done on this, but we have now many, many examples of heritage knowledge being brought back because it was excluded by the colonial processes, and scientific knowledge being brought together so that we're able to deploy heritage and science, both sciences, both knowledge practices that relate to the world. We were able to deploy them in ESD in productive ways. So this is a newish area, and an area that is well worth pursuing in terms of research and teaching practices in a classroom setting.